What's going on, everybody? James from The Conservative here, and today I want to talk to you about an article coming out from The Federalist that is going over a fact check done by the left's own paper, The Washington Post, that kind of goes against their whole white privilege narrative. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to pull the article up here from The Federalist titled The R Word, Washington Post fact-checked calls black senator privileged for family history of picking cotton. The Washington Post's lead fact-checker, Glenn Kessler, issued a hit piece against Senator Tim Scott on Friday, targeting him for his black heritage. Using the guise of a fact-check, Kessler spent nearly 30 paragraphs analyzing census documents and other records to try to counteract Scott's claims that his grandfather left elementary school to pick cotton and, quote, never learned to read or write. Here he is, Glenn Kessler. New fact checker, new hashtag fact checker. Tim Scott often talks about his grandfather and cotton. There's more to the tale. The article continues. While the article sets out to prove Scott wrong, it confirms the narrative that the senator has repeated in his book and from the political podium multiple times. While Scott believed his grandfather, Artis Ware, dropped out of school in the 3rd grade, Kessler claimed to have uncovered that Ware may have left school in the 4th grade, a slight inconsistency which even Kessler admitted could occur because the records are old. Despite the slight difference in his grandfather's age when he left school, Kessler glossed over the fact that Ware worked 55 hours a week in cotton fields at a young age in order to attack Scott for amplifying his family history for, quote, political consumption. Quote, Artis appears to have been able to sign his name according to his 1942 World War II draft registration card and home mortgages obtained in 1998 and 2007, Kessler wrote, which he noted could be used as evidence in direct contrast with Scott's claims that Artis never learned to read or write. So at one point in time, an X was considered a viable signature for joining the military. Just to throw that out there, but I'm sure in 98 and 2007, that was probably a different story. But regardless, knowing how to sign one's name is a far cry from being completely literate. My son has been able to write his own name well before he could completely read and write. It's a very stark contrast to be able to say, oh, well, because he can sign his name, he was clearly literate. I don't think that really proves anything in this case. So that's my opinion, but just wanted to jump in there for a second. Anyways, moving on. Not only did Kessler frame the sham fact check to suggest Scott inherited a privileged heritage because his family bought land instead of participating in sharecropping, but he concluded the article by admitting that the corporate outlet would not give the Republican statement their usual Pinocchio rating. Kessler concedes that Scott is probably not relying on, quote, detailed examination of records, but his own memories of his grandfather. Scott tells a tidy story package for political consumption, but a close look shows how some of his family's early and improbable success gets flattened and written out of his biography. Against heavy odds, Scott's ancestors amassed relatively large areas of farmland, a marked distinction in the black community at the time. Scott, moreover, does not mention that his grandfather worked on his father's farm, a farm that was expanded through land acquisitions even during the Great Depression when many other black farmers were forced out of business. A quote coming from Margaret Cleveland. Some enterprising black families purchased property as a way to avoid sharecropping and achieve a measure of independence from white-dominated society. Could this read any more like Scott's uppity black family dared not be beholden to sharecroppers? That's very well said there. The Washington Post did not respond to the Federalist request for comment or questions about whether other politicians who tout their heritage for political points will be subject to the same nitpicky scrutiny applied in this article. Critics mocked Kessler for the propagandistic article clearly targeting Scott. Some hinted that the attack could be seen as racist. We don't want to use that word, right? That's not allowed. Whitest of white guys does a fact check on Tim Scott's blackness. Arthur Schwartz. Carl Smith says, not exactly covering for yourself in glory here, Glenn Kessler. TLDR, Scott says his grandfather had to drop out of school at 10 years old to pick cotton, but actually he was 11, and it was only because his father was a cotton farmer and the Great Depression had driven down prices. Dana Loesch, the white leftist trying to nullify Tim Scott's family's experience out of anger that they moved up in life and he became Republican, are the same ones who defended Elizabeth Warren's wholly baseless claim of indigenous ancestry. I could not have said that better myself. That is absolutely amazing. This completely goes against their entire narrative, right? The left pushing this whole narrative of privilege, but clearly we have Mr. Scott here, and not to say that necessarily he was privileged, but his family was somewhat successful even in the earlier years. Good for him. Good for Mr. Scott. I think that's great. I think that's absolutely amazing. I just think it's funny that they had to go this far to try and discredit somebody just because he happens to be on the other side of the aisle than them. He's doing good. He's continuing to use his platform for good, and I wish Mr. Scott nothing but success. I think he's going to do great, and I think stuff like this is just absolutely abhorrent, and it just clearly shows the bias that exists on the other side. Privilege is only allowed if you follow a certain political line, tote the line, follow a certain political party, and you're allowed to have privilege. But if you don't, no privilege for you. Anyways, that's all I got for you today. I will link the article down in the description box below if you would like to take a look at it for yourself. Remember, don't take my word for it. Don't take the mainstream media's word for it. Please do your own research. Research is knowledge, and knowledge is power. Have a great day. I hope I'll see you again next time.